papers and all, there is a student who he was researching on one of the Maniratnam, his films, and he was writing about one character, and the ChatGPT gave an entire poem for it. He copy pasted the poem in the research paper, and then I have to scold him, strike up everything, again make him rewrite. Another 2 days back we had a fest, and then I asked my students to write down questions to ask the international documentary filmmaker or documentary photographer basically. It gave immediately all 25 questions, brilliant questions though, but then students did not actually put in any efforts to ask the questions to the guests based on the work.
I think there are multiple. It's a very good question, and I have to think about it, and I think you would have to think about it among your colleagues. How and if you can use AI and things like ChatGPT to foster critical thinking? The answer may be yes, because one of the things you can do is to get students to evaluate what the computer produces in that piece. So that's part of the skills they need to be able to differentiate between what is artificial intelligence and what's produced. There's a very good article in the Chronicle of Higher Education, I think it came out in May, from a student at Cornell, who explains exactly how he uses ChatGPT in a way as a tool on that piece. It's to follow, not to use it to fill on that piece. This is why you need to explain to them what is feasible, what is acceptable, and have a clear, transparent policy. There's nothing wrong with a policy that says you can't use it. It's like saying you can't use cell phones. It's never going to work.
But if you're using it, to be clear that you are using it, and how you are using it.
Currently, a number of journals that I review for a number of other journals are now requiring, if you use it, you need to put in an acknowledgement. And whenever I use it, I acknowledge that it has been edited or mainly edited or used in the development of it. There's nothing wrong with that. I can tell you the answer is that students win. Yes, there are tools, but students, there are just as quick tools to get around it. This is a race between computer science teams and doing it. They're never going to catch up. So the answer is yes, but they also have false negatives. You got to be very careful.
Plagiarism is all.
The question about plagiarism is a question about ethics and integrity, and until people change, it's never over unless you help them do it all.
Very good afternoon, Canada. And our group represents Father Vice Principal, Arunjyoti, and Dr. Kavita Varman, Dean of Food and Nutrition, and Dean of Cultural Activities, Saras Khan, and myself, Dr. Sirisha, Biotechnologist. So I like to ask you that AI and ChatGPT is the tool is helpful for identification of any ethical values or morals related to the research work or anything? How come would we address that?
I think I have the question right, and this is the question that really comes about, and the idea that both myself and Melissa talked about, and this is engaging students and helping them develop those soft skills or those professional skills in doing that. It's not solely your responsibility, it's the responsibility of their parents, their peers, but also of teachers on that.
Okay, thank you very much for this, and thank you, Spencer. We're going to shift gears. We'll come back. Hold your questions. Hold your questions, please. Hold your questions. And we're going to shift to Professor Fitch. Okay? So think now, back to her presentation. What question, the one question representing the interests of the table, right? What questions do you have for Professor Fitch to explore further, to challenge what she said, to add and questions that you have for using what she said here in Xavier Academy? So formulate the questions for Professor Fitch, and you have one. Okay, here we are.
My question is, how can we create a community in the classroom around it? How can we create a community?
So actually, all of the strategies that I talked about create a sense of common purpose. And so that is really what a learning community is about. When the students are sharing a goal and they're communicating deeply about a given topic, then that is what does it. And what I found is that there are ways to do that without online resources that I never would have thought about if it hadn't been for the pandemic. So I think that once, what I found, at least in my classes, is that if you can create the learning community, then everyone raises up. Do you see what I'm saying? How they, it's like everybody's engaged, everyone's involved. My class begins at 12:30 on Mondays and Wednesdays, and what I've noticed is that the students are coming in a half an hour early just to talk to one another about what it is that we're doing in the class, because they're that excited about it. So that's what it means to be in a learning community. They look forward to speaking to one another. And that also ties back to this notion that professors, our role has changed. So it's not that they're coming early because they want to hang out with me. They're coming early because they enjoy their colleagues and they're stimulated intellectually by the work that they're doing. And that's what's the key to getting them to the learning outcomes.
Okay, we have a question over here, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. And we in our team, as has been introduced by Sirisha ma'am. Ma'am, you were telling that in your class, when you begin your class with the 25 students, you stand near the door and wish them and then send them inside. Now we have a class strength of 60 and above. So how is that we can manage doing this? And the last, yes, how is that we will address the last learners?
To be honest, what I would suggest doing, I know it's hard, and if the students also know that they can't linger and start talking, sometimes they want to do that. But I think that this is worth even ending a couple of minutes before, just so that they have a chance to interact one-on-one as they're leaving. It really makes, what I found is it makes a huge difference. They leave in a positive mindset, they're excited to come the next class. So even though it's hard, I still think it should be done. I just think that the students we have to say, you know what? It's going to be really quick. It's going to be very quick.
Hello, good afternoon, ma'am. My question is, how do you measure community engagement? What are the parameters for the measurement? How do you measure the community engagement? What are the parameters to measure this?
Yeah, that's an easy one, and it's something that was in my presentation, and then I thought, no, I don't want to get too off task here. Community engagement, by definition, means that there must be some sort of proof of the efficacy of what the students are doing. So what I do is I have the community member be the one to evaluate exactly, and we have to be able to see a tangible result from that collaboration with the community member. That's also something that is done, because of course the community member isn't an educator by trade or anything, but I have regular meetings with the community leaders about the students and how it is going. And then they also have evaluation forms. And then at the end, the idea is that we can actually see something. So let me give you an example, and I'll talk about this a little bit tomorrow. Last year I was living in South America with some of my students. And the students were given the task of determining what community service project they cared very deeply about. They all took a vote. I gave them a whole bunch of options, and everybody agreed that animal rescue was the thing that they all agreed on and that mattered deeply to them. Because that's key. It has to be something that matters to them. You can't just foist it on them. It has to come from them. So they embarked on numerous things with rescue centers in Chile, in Santiago and Valparaiso, Chile. They were out. They were helping with the animals, they were cleaning, they were building kennels. We had gotten volunteer donations to build new stalls for the animals. By the time my students left, we could actually see and measure exactly what they had managed to accomplish. And that is how you measure community engagement, I think.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Here, okay. Ma'am, in the current period, the attention span of the student is very low, that is 8.25 seconds. To complete a good presentation, it takes minimum of 20 minutes. So, is it really possible to connect them to the topic and get their attention or concentration? As you said that 2022 United Nations Education Transformation Summit, as you mentioned.
So the question is, how on earth do we do that? When we're trying to get the information out there, but we need to mix. Yeah, it's not easy. What you have to do is have the question not be one that lends itself to great lengthy discussions, but rather something that's just going to kind of jolt them out of that trance that they tend to go into, right? That somehow will connect to what something you just said. So, and sometimes you can do that. I know in classes, I'm not sure if you can do like an immediate vote on something, you know, and so then you can see in real time the results. But that's a way to do it. Anything that's going to stop the sound of the voice going blah, 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 because that's it, they're out. We've lost them already.
Our team father correspondent, Mrs. Shalini and myself, Dr. Mansi. Our question as a global teacher, how do you help students to overcome their cultural and language barriers?
Boy, that is my entire life. So you do that through cultural immersion, which of course is very difficult because it's costly. Though into online now we have options of having sort of cultural immersion experiences. This is one thing, for example, I told you I'm teaching film. Film is a great way to share what I've been trying to do, share the things that cut across all humans while seeing the differences and allowing for the differences and accepting and respecting the differences, which is the key point. It's sometimes very challenging. Last year I was with some students in Argentina who I mentioned last night at dinner got kicked out of their hostel because they were so poorly behaved. And at that point I thought, oh my God, my entire life's work, what a disaster. So it doesn't always work. There are some students that frankly, I hate to say this, but they don't want to see that. It's almost as though they embrace their ignorance. And that is really hard to deal with. There's no way around it. As my very first tango teacher told me, I'm not a miracle worker. When I tried to learn to dance. So it's like that. I'm not a miracle worker. I try, and sometimes I fail, and sometimes we're going to fail, unfortunately.
Professor. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the beautiful insights that you gave us. And my question is like, as one of the takeaway you gave, that less is more. Less is more. Yeah. So in here, we believe discipline is a catalyst for learning. So what if, and we prefer a quiet study environment. So can you suggest the ways that we can balance the discipline, the values, as well as the education, because we are jumping into a system of like more of activities than rather than going with a one-to-one teaching. So how can we balance values, and especially for people who are young, and how to balance the values as well as discipline, and how can we go with more interactive sessions?
This is a really interesting and challenging question because we cannot throw those things out, and we have to respect the differences within the classroom because not all students are going to be that. Some are quiet and reserved, and there has to be room for that too. What I try to do is just be very sensitive to it and not force anybody, but actually, interestingly enough, this is one way also that I found having the conversations online is really beneficial, because what I found is that the students who are quiet and sort of low-key and speak very infrequently, well, if it's a Zoom conversation, that's when they can blossom lots of times, because it's just the two of you. So I've noticed that a lot of times with students. Within the classroom, I just allow them to be who they are. It's a question of respect, and I respect that difference. So it's not, all of our students are not the same. You're going to have the overly enthusiastic ones that you have to kind of calm down, and then you're going to have the ones that are kind of quiet that we have to pull out of their shell if it's possible, and if it's not, that's okay too. But discipline, but when I say joy, don't think that that means there's no discipline, because boy, there's discipline too. I just don't seem like I'm tough.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid our time is lapsed, and, but we want to thank our two speakers again for their responses to our questions. And thank you to all those who asked the questions. Now, there are always many more questions that we have answers, but that's the nature of our life and work as teachers. Now, with the remaining time, I want you to go back into your groups and focus on this question. How do we implement what we've learned today, this morning, in our teaching and in our work in the college? First of all, so we'll go up to the hour. We have about 10 minutes to discuss and write down some notes, and later we'll come back to that. Okay, looking for challenges for implementation. Thank you. Oh, yes, of course you were. Of course you were. And look, the heart is speaking even if the mind is missing. much. This is a big subject of challenges to implementation. And this will be with us for a long time, but we don't have a long time. But you know, there's such a happy noise in the room. It's a sound of engagement. Yeah? That is so pleasurable for me, frankly, to listen and to know that you are interacting with each other and sharing what you're learning and taking it into your life, you know, into your work and to your, here at Xavier Academy and wherever you're teaching. Now, could I ask you, we don't have time to go into the Q&A, but we're going to have a panel up front. So could I ask you all to please rise? All right.
Yes? Okay. Moving on, we will now have a panel discussion by our esteemed guests, Professor Glenn Shive, Professor Spencer Benson, and Professor Melissa Fitch.
She is. No, she's in it.
We're going to start, and I want to thank everybody for the high level of engagement and attention this morning and this afternoon. And we'll continue on it, but we're going to change things up a little bit. And we're going to try something new. So this is really more of a conversation, and that conversation is among the three of us, but also among the three of us and among the audience. And the topic is scholarship and interdisciplinary scholarship. And I expect here in India, as in every other place in the world that has institutes of higher education, whether they are R1 in the US or IIT in India, there has been increased expectations from above for scholarship. Sometimes it's referred to research, but I prefer the term scholarship. It's, in my opinion, in part unfortunate. It's unfortunate because, at least in the sciences, we have tended historically to define scholarship by vetted publications. And that is certainly a form of scholarships. It turns out in the US, and it's been copied in many areas of the world, that came about historically because it was just easy to measure faculty performance because you could count them. And now it got even easier because you don't even need to count them. You just go online and it tells you the number of papers that have been cited, and converts it into an H number for you. I'm not sure those are meaningful, but they are given meaning. For among the STEM people, and probably many of you, if you've been following over the last month, this is the month where the Nobel Prizes are given. And one of the Nobel Prizes was given to a team at University of Pennsylvania, and one of the winners had never received tenure, had never been given a tenured position, had been demoted on this piece. But her research was cutting edge on it. So that's an example that fails. So having said that, I want to rechange the definition and the reason I use scholarship. So scholarship means making an impact. So all of you make impacts every day in your classes. It's clear you impact students' lives, and often you don't and will not know that until far down the line. Many of you probably have received this note that comes out of the blue from somebody you, in my case, somebody I didn't even remember on it, thanking me for that piece. So you are clearly impacting lives. And unfortunately, it doesn't get counted as promotion and tenure in many, many cases on it. In the US, we're changing that slowly and asking and beginning to count those pieces. I expect and would like to believe that everybody in this room is a scholarly teacher. And we use that definition, and it's been codified and is generally accepted. A scholarly teacher is a teacher who reflects upon their craft and their teaching and uses that to improve their teaching. And that's a really wonderful thing, but I can't count it because I don't know about it. Scholarly teaching is when you take those changes and you go public. This is from the Carnegie Corporation. I have the honor in a number of years ago to be a Carnegie Fellow for 2 years. And we dealt very much with this question as the emergence of the scholarship of teaching and learning. This is now an international society. There are multiple journals on that. That came out of the Carnegie Corporation for the advancement of teaching that was started in the 1800s. So what it means for scholarship is to be public. A paper published in your discipline journal is clearly being public, but it's also being public when you bring your work to your peers at your university, whether it is your faculty member group, your friend in the Dix department, your department, or your university. You need to document that in doing it. What has emerged is that there now are many venues where your scholarship in teaching can be published, including venues such as Nature and Science and Cell. These are all STEM type journals, but there's journals in physics education, chemistry education, history, all of those. That is scholarship that all of you can do. What is required is a class, students, and the effort to find a problem or a challenge and address it in a scholarly way, which means collecting data, doing an analysis, and then making it public. You can certainly send it to a number of journals that are involved with teaching and learning. I review for maybe half a dozen. So that's part of what scholarship is. And that's one you can do. The second piece I'd like to remind people, and this, I come from the STEM field, and I've always been a scientist, and when I changed in mid-career to really working mainly in higher education and the questions of how students learn or how to improve student learning, it was no different than what I had been doing for 2 decades when I was asking questions about how bacteria evolved, how fermentation worked. I found a question, we collected data, we tried something. Often they failed on that. In microbiology, it's one of the reasons I love it, is because we can do experiments and they can fail, and it's only a few days. Other ones is much longer. Failure is success because it moves you forward. So if you do scholarship of teaching and learning and you only ask those questions that you already know the answer to, then you're just repeating. The hardest challenge, or the first challenge, is you got to be familiar with the literature. I ran workshops with colleagues for summer workshops at the American Society of Microbiology on scholarship in microbiology research, or DBER, discipline-specific research on education, on that. So you got to go to the literature, but you can do that. You already have that. So part of it is defining a problem, and I can tell you if your problem is, does engaged learning or does flipped classes improve student learning? Already done, already know. There are 1,000, over 1,000, perhaps 2,000 papers that I've already looked at it. So if you increase student engagement, learning goes up. You can do it in your class if you got a really unique one, but there are better questions on that. Lots of new ones on that. So that's really what I wanted to say in terms of the scholarship of teaching and learning. Find a problem, make sure that it is a real problem and not a solved one. Do the literature search, ask the right questions, collect data, find somebody to help you analyze it. Often when I have a number of, I probably publish reasonably well in that venue is, and part of what we often ask is, how do you know and what is the impact? How do we do that? I find people that can help me do that. When we look at student writing and code it to see if they're addressing pieces, I work with colleagues and students from the social science disciplines because they know how to do this. I know how to do it. It is not something I like doing. It's something they're much better at. When I need to do the statistical analysis, I go find my colleagues who are good and like stat, because they will know how to use R, they will know how to look at this data, and they can tell me what it means or how to present it on it. So now this is important to work in interdisciplinary teams in doing that. In the sciences, for the STEM people here, we know in the literature, irrespective of the discipline now, there are very few single author papers. I just read one in science, and I think there were 357 authors. In physics, it's worse because there are 1,000 sometimes because of the people involved. So this is interdisciplinary. That's what you can look at. I can tell you an area that I think is really not well explored and will require you to be interdisciplinary, and that's the interface of the sciences and humanities. Every scientist I know and respect has great respect for humanities and how important it is. but there is this divide that seems to say the humanities never get credit and the science get all of the money. It's not right, and that's an area that really needs to be addressed, and that's something you will clearly have the ability to get published on. Work with people on that. If you need help and you're looking at a question, send me an email. I may be able to answer it, but I will know people who do. If you have the opportunity, go to conferences that are involved in teaching on that. I often present at teaching and learning conferences, and when I submit my abstract, one of the questions is, what is the evidence and what is the impact on that? Those are vetted, they count. So those are really the things that I want to say on that. But what I really want to remind you is that scholarship is going public. It means changing how somebody else or some other institution tries on that. And the other one, of course, to remind you, to make advancements requires failure on it. So there's nothing wrong if you try something new and it doesn't work. You may want to try it again, it's on it, but you may want to just say, this doesn't work here on it, and something on that. So that's what I want to say. I'm going to pass it to my colleagues, but after they've had something to say, we're going to come back and ask you for examples or questions and comments of the scholarship that you're doing that is different from writing in your discipline journal or your book on that, the traditional ones.
Wow, there's so many different things I can touch upon that Spencer had mentioned, starting with impact, because this is what I've been thinking about all day. At my university, is a Research One university, which means that we are expected as tenure-track professors and tenured professors to produce one single authored book every 6 years that would be published by a university press. And so 6 years, then you have a sabbatical, then another 6 years, another book, then you have a sabbatical, and so on until you die. Okay, this is what we do in the humanities. The problem is what we do in the humanities does not compute with what they do in other parts of the university. And one of the interesting ways in which this shakes down is when faculty members are competing for grants university-wide. And inevitably, I'm on the selection committee, and I'm the only person from the humanities or social and behavioral sciences. Everybody else is from the hard sciences with 350 co-authors. So they say, this person in the humanities isn't actually a scholar. They wrote that book all by themselves. And it's up to me to try and make the case for how our scholarship, it's apples and oranges. So it makes it very complicated. Spencer mentioned impact, and impact is the way that I think universities that are Research One universities are transforming the promotion and tenure guidelines, basically. Right now, I'm the head of the promotion and tenure committee for the faculty, for the College of Humanities. And the word impact is there, and the key, as Spencer said, is documenting that impact. What I would suggest you all do, and this is what I suggested to our own faculty, is that you start a folder where every message you get from a community person, from a student, from a family, you keep that, you put that in a special folder, because all of those things down the road are going to be able to document your impact. As Spencer was saying, this H number is just, it's very difficult to deal with that. It's very unwieldy because it works for the sciences. It really does not work as much for social and behavioral sciences and the humanities. I edit an international journal of Latin American popular culture. And actually, with the journal that I edit, I've edited for 20 years with the University of Texas Press. It's almost like we want the exact opposite of a highly specialized journal with lots of jargon that very few people can understand. It's specific to multidisciplinary work. It's specific to writing in a way that's accessible, which is another key thing of having an impact. You don't want to have an impact with one person. You want to be able to make what you say intelligible to wide bodies of people, and then that ultimately is going to be the measure, but it's a little bit tricky when you're trying to prove this. The universities and the colleges have to get on board and understand that it's all changing. And so I think that this is an important point. I wanted to actually bring up something else that it was one of the questions that Spencer had answered about the very specialized, the soft skills versus the hard skills. One of the best studies, one of my favorite studies, was of students who finish their college degree and immediately they get a job with Fortune 500 companies. What they found is that the students who were overly specialized would get the job very quickly, but they wouldn't rise up through the ranks of the company. The students who had the soft skills, even if maybe they had a double major of say, humanities and the sciences, it took them a while to get the job, but once they got to the job, they actually rose through the ranks at a much faster clip and remained oftentimes in the leadership positions. So this kind of brings home in a real practical way why all of this matters. Something else that Spencer mentioned was failing. Boy, I always think, if I could write sort of like the anti-CV that would list, instead of my successes, my failures, it would probably be as long as my CV. But those are the experiences that are key. And when you do send out scholarship and you do get back a scathing review in which they rip apart almost every other sentence, you sure learn the hard way that this is part and parcel of being a scholar. It means being able to put it out there and run the risk of maybe having to realize it wasn't such a great idea after all, or redoubling your efforts to explain why it is. But failure is part and parcel of the profession, basically, and of scholarship, because not everything we do is going to be successful. I think the main issue here is that institutions need to understand and change the criteria by which they decide promotion and tenure to make it a broad, inclusive notion of scholarship, and because that is going to mean the world to the students. Because what happens is oftentimes you've got people who are engaging in these sorts of scholarship that for whatever reason maybe their university doesn't define it as narrowly, is defining it too narrowly. And if you lose your educators that are most devoted, then it's a loss for everybody. I mean, it's so critically important that scholarship, public humanities, public scholarship be recognized. This is something else that, for example, we now have it that if you write an opinion column for a newspaper and it gets cited repeatedly, this constitutes part of your scholarship as a public scholar. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. In terms of the interdisciplinarity, this often will have to be obviously with team teaching, but some really exciting things are happening. I just want to give you one example, because this is teaching / scholarship, because as Spencer was saying, as I know Glenn will also talk about, if you engage in these things, you can write about this experience, and then you have a piece of scholarship right there. So last week, there was a very famous fashion designer that was invited to my university to meet with 13 of our fashion design students. Each student, 3 weeks prior, had been given a poem, and their assignment was to create an outfit connected to this poem. And so, in fact, they did, and it turned out, and then they had sort of a fashion show where the poem was read and the model came out, and then this fashion designer that was brought on campus was questioning the student to get them to be able to defend why they had included these various things, how they had understood the poem, and how the poem could be read in what the model was wearing. This is fascinating to me, and this is a perfect example of the kind of exciting scholarship that can be done with students in radically new and different ways. I was telling Glenn that this last summer I walked 580 miles from France to the Atlantic Ocean on the Camino de Santiago de Compostela. That's a Catholic pilgrimage, and it was the most incredible experience of my life. The United Nations recognizes two ancient spiritual pilgrimages. One is the one in Spain, and the other one is in Japan. It's a Buddhist pilgrimage that goes to 88 temples, and it's 780 miles or something. So of course I'm thinking, this is fascinating, this notion of the pilgrimage, and the notion how every country and culture, religion has pilgrimage, and it cuts across all of these different things. Literature, of course, religion, you find it in film, it's in poetry, you can find it in popular music, in digital culture. So I began to think about how exciting this idea of life as a journey or as a pilgrimage is. And so I was speaking to my own dean and said, maybe this would enable me to work with my colleagues in the Center for Buddhist Studies, in East Asian Studies, in the Department of Religious Studies, in French and German. It cuts across all of these different things. What I am envisioning now, and since I'll be on sabbatical next year, I'll be able to devote my time to this, is developing a course in which my colleagues would be able to also share from their own discipline something related to this notion of the pilgrimage, but also pairing our students who are at the beginning of their own life journey with our adult learners. They say that usually people who are retired and they're over the age of 70 or even 80, who are at the end of their journey. So I have this idea for community engagement in which we would be able to bridge that distance and make some meaningful communication with them. This is something that I can write about. It's something I feel very deeply about, and this makes it so meaningful. The scholarship at my university, because like I said, every 6 years you have to produce a book, sometimes I do get emails from people who have read my book, and I honestly can barely even remember what I wrote. You know, it was so long ago, and they want to talk about like chapter 2, the second paragraph you said. And I think the stress of having to write that book and knowing that if I didn't have that book published, I was going to lose my job, pretty much obliterated the entire thing from my mind once I got tenure. And I think that is a problem, because had I been doing something that I truly passionately believed in, as I do teaching and education, I think it would be a very different story. So I think it's a travesty, the way that scholarship has been conceived. It needs to be reconceptualized. And once it is reconceptualized, there will be room for all of us, basically, and all of these things.
Thank you. Thank you. I spent some time with the Dominicans and at Oxford in the UK, where I now live. And the Dominicans always would talk about their preachers, the Order of Preachers, OP, that they take from their meditation and bring it out into their preaching. But the preaching then develops an experience that they bring back into meditation, that there is a circle. And I think there is and needs to be a circle between the teaching and research that takes the fruits of research and brings it into teaching, and the teaching experience leads to further research. That it has to be a positive dialectic, as it were, a positive circle that we need to find in our own lives. I went to university and was convinced I was going to be a teacher, and a great teacher, but circumstances were such that jobs were scarce. But I'm in Chinese studies. China was opening in 1980. And I had the chance to work in the field of international educational exchange, and I realized, I thought, well, I'm into administration. That's not teaching. Well, I realized that that can be another form of teaching, that this is taking students out of their own cultural zone and helping them discover a new culture and discover something about themselves in that culture that they didn't know before. And they go back and they are transformed. And that transformation of life is fundamental to good teaching. And so I think we can be teachers in many ways, not just institutionally designed so to be focused primarily in the classroom. In the United States, there's a new trend, I would say. It's called the undergraduate research. There is a Council of Undergraduate Research, CUR. And they meet every year and they accept papers. But the idea is, well, undergraduates, how can they do research? They haven't been trained. I mean, in fact, graduate students, they're postgraduate students, they're the ones that, you know, they're just learning how to do research. And it's absurd to say undergraduates can conduct research, but there's actually another branch. It's called citizen science, right? You, Spencer, can talk more about this. That, you know, if people are deep sea diving and the reefs are being bleached away, the divers come up and they are measuring things. It's a question of organizing the public to inquire and observe their environment and feed information into a network that creates new knowledge and communicates that knowledge out into the broader society. And it often has nothing to do with universities. So even research is being sort of, you know, taken over by NGO groups, and because we all need new knowledge and we need to communicate that to broader publics. And Spencer talked about that, going public. One of the biggest fields in science is science journalism. That, you know, to have the expertise in science, but also in communications, so that, and I understand you have a good communications school here, then Xavier is a leader in this area. This is very important. Spencer mentioned the idea of flipped classrooms, and I wonder if we know what that is. Maybe that's another conversation to say, what is a flipped classroom? The idea that what we use classrooms for, if we're engaging students in inquiry that leads them beyond the classroom, they need time together in the classroom to understand and work together in small teams, but that you know, they use the classroom time for collaboration, not just for lectures. So that's an interesting thing. It's been developed, and it's a very important trend, I would say, is the flipped classroom. But take a look at the Council of Undergraduate Research through your Google, and you'll see if there is some possibility here. Maybe there already is here at Xavier Academy, to have reward for students that do outstanding research, and to involve teachers, the faculty, in supporting them in that research. So there is a possibilities we'll talk more about the Asian network in the US and IACHE and the collaborations that become possible because these two networks of institutions are working together. And we've learned from the pandemic how to communicate across the world when we can't go across the city. Well, we can now have our students work in teams from India and the US on a systematic basis if we as teachers are not the sage on the stage, but the guide on the side who can help organize students whose energy will be, they will put it into the collaboration that they discover if they're working together with students they've never met, but electronically, of course, they can do it, and they will have to do it in their jobs when they graduate anyway. So this is very relevant kind of skills that they will take into their workplace. There's a project that I know of that is a study of popular culture in India and in America, based on a book that a friend of mine published, and it's looking at popular culture, India and America. Well, our students in both countries can relate to that because they're involved in that culture, and they need help to reflect on that and do the comparative studies, across nations. And this is something that you do a lot Melissa. I know that there is a video that has been asked that we show in the last segment of this hour, but I wanted to leave perhaps for after these comments that you have questions. Back to you, Spencer.
Yeah. What we want to do is briefly open it up. We have time. We have a long tea break, so we do have time for comments and questions from you, from the people in the audience. I'm sure many of you are doing scholarly teaching, and many of you are doing research. And before I open that up, I want to sort of a truth in advertising piece. For those of us in STEM, I get an email from ResearchGate about once a week. It's an organization that tracks, they work on the H factors and all of this. And so one of the things you can do is you can go in there and you can look somebody up like yourself, and then look at all of my publications that they have. They have most of them, and I can see how many times they were cited. I have publications that have been cited twice. That's a lot of impact. Probably they were the ones I cited in the paper I wrote after it. Your citation. On that. Well, that's why people cite their own papers. The interesting piece is over the last 6 months, 2 papers have been rising rapidly, and they have nothing to do with my discipline work. One of them was written more than 2 decades, or more than 2 decades ago, with a colleague in communication at the University of Tennessee, because as the Carnegie Fellow, we had to do an interdisciplinary project, and it's entitled, Is teaching online teaching invisible people? On that. The question at that point was, were these really people out there? Because we didn't have Zoom on it. And the other one has to do with a co-paper on China 2025 that I wrote with a colleague in China on manufacturing in China. And again, nothing to do with the discipline research, my teaching scholarship, so you never know where these come from. But both of those are truly interdisciplinary and outside my piece.
So actually, my most widely read essay was published in Malayalam. It was written obviously in English, but somebody who speaks Malayalam loved it and wanted to translate it, so they published it in an online journal, and it had 8,000 views. And so I think, wow, okay, oh no, thank you, yeah, so but I still, it's sort of like Spencer, you go, oh, okay, so 3 people read my book, but then I have 8,000 people in a place I've never gone who have read about Argentine tango. So, anyway, because in Kerala they love their soccer, and Argentina and Brazil, but anyway, so it's funny, you just never know who's gonna end up reading your work.
That's the important piece. You do not know what your impact is. But I really do want to open it up for questions or comments, and particularly we'd like to hear what you're doing. And I'm gonna walk down. I'm always.
Just make it. Just switch on the mic. My question is to Melissa, Professor Melissa. Yes. Yeah. congratulations that 8,000 people have read your article, Malayalam article, translated into. That's what you were telling, no? Okay, fine. Now my question is, you are mentioning about, madam, you are mentioning about documenting the impact. It's easier for us to document the achievements. Easier to document the achievements. Documenting the impact, especially the impact the teacher has on the students. It's very difficult. And that doesn't come into calculation at all for a student, for a staff. How are you doing that, documenting the impact? Yes, thank you.
So this is actually really interesting because since I'm now the head of that committee, that was the very first question I asked. I said, well, what if it's not in some sort of an official thing? If it's letters, if it's messages, we find out in so many different ways and often after many years what our impact is. And I was told that absolutely can count. So at least in my university, they are allowing for those things. As long as you've got that documentation, which is why it's all about that documentation, you can say this, because students sometimes they write really lovely, heartfelt, long messages about how your class may have changed their life. And of course, that has to be factored in the scheme of things. So again, it goes back to hoping that the institution where you are will recognize it's possible that if you say, you know, this is beginning to happen around the world, where they're acknowledging the fact that this does demonstrate impact, you know, that they will change, you know, because these old ways of looking at what constitutes scholarship are just not serving really anyone. And especially when it's overly specialized scholarship that, I mean, think about what the greater good is, ultimately, of some of the work that we do, where the impact just extends out. It's like, you know, the pebble that there's thrown and then it ripples out. And especially if the people you're educating then go on to become educators, who knows where it ends? Yes. So, so hopefully they will take that into consideration, and hopefully that'll become something that is done regularly. I really hope that's the case.
I think one of the other
Thank you,
things,
Professor. Sorry.
one of the other things, if you're not doing, because I've run teaching and learning faculty development centers for a long time before I retired. If you are not doing an assessment of your teaching in your courses, and this is not the student evaluation of teaching, this set piece where students evaluate you. You want to write your own and document it. I do this for every course I've ever taught in that. I was always required to use the university one and got a student ranking, but I always did my own as well on that. And so that documentation you need to keep. One of the ways of keeping it, there are many, is to develop, or if you don't have, an electronic teaching portfolio where you can put in all of these things, organize it, and then share it out.
So actually, I did the same thing. I was doing an assessment based on things I had tried with the students. So in other words, I actually said to them, you know, this class has had some unusual components. These are the things that I tried, and I want you to tell me, was that effective or was that not effective? Because that's immensely helpful. We can't just assume because it's new, it's good. It might not be. And so having that sort of an assessment also to balance out the student evaluations. Student evaluations at my university are optional now. And the problem with them being optional is that, as you might imagine, the only ones that actually complete the student evaluation are really mad about their grade. Okay? Sometimes it's the ones that love you, but often it's the disgruntled ones. So to have something that everyone does anonymously, where you're talking about why you did what you did. It's not a big secret, you know. You want them to understand the method to your madness.
Other questions or comments?
Let me ask until another emerges. What's happening with learning management systems, LMS? What is the impact, do you think, is happening as universities put this into place? Is this a good thing, or is there some danger here?
They are they are electronic structure within all universities. I do not know. It's not a question, it's like asking, what's the impact of having buildings or not having buildings? It is that integrated in there. They're just a tool. There are many, I've used 5 different ones. They're like cars. They cost different amounts, but they all do the same thing. They just have different whistles and bells on that. But they're also a wonderful tool where you can do many of these pieces on it. But we now have Zoom and hybrid courses pieces. These are tools to do that. I think one of the areas that all of you can think about, it may be published in journals here in India, but I haven't seen a lot in terms of hybrid classes and pieces coming out of the Indian subcontinent on that. And this is important to the world. You send more students to the US than any other country in the world. And so the US is interested in that piece and what's going on, because you will continue to grow as part of our feedstock for graduate schools across the US. If there are no other questions, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, and we're going to, I think it's appropriate. I love videos, and so we're going to see a video about outcomes and OBT on that. And so thank you again. I will be around, all of us, so if you have other questions, please feel free to stop and ask us. And again, I want to remind you, this was a trial piece. We'll see if this works. It may have had 0 value, negative value, or maybe it had some value. Again, thank you.
Thank you, professors. The panel discussion was indeed insightful. We will now watch a short video on how teaching, learning, and evaluation is practiced in Loyola Academy. Good afternoon to one and all. This video we just prepared to know about the teaching learning practices, what we are doing at Loyola College here in Hyderabad. So all our delegates will know what we are practicing actually in the various methods which we are using in order to do an all-round development of the syllabus, or for the student, how it is being benefited. So this video is about it.
teaching. Teaching involves the process of imparting knowledge, skills, and values to students. Effective teaching requires instructors to plan, develop clear learning objectives, curriculum, and instructional materials. Engage, use various teaching methods and strategies to capture students' attention and promote active participation. Adapt, tailor teaching methods to the needs and learning styles of individual students. Assess, continuously monitor students' progress and adjust teaching strategies as needed. Foster, create a positive and inclusive learning environment that encourages curiosity and critical thinking. Reflect, evaluate the effectiveness of teaching methods and make improvements based on feedback and outcomes. Loyola Academy encourages an outcome-oriented education system to enhance the employability of graduates through learning outcomes-based curriculum framework, upgrading academic resources to raise the quality of teaching and research. The expected learning outcomes are used as reference points that would help to formulate graduate attributes, qualification descriptors, program learning outcomes, and course learning outcomes, which in turn will help in curriculum planning and development. Loyola Academy implements teaching methods that include practicals and field-based learning, lectures supported by group tutorial work, the use of prescribed textbooks and e-learning resources and other self-study materials, open-ended project work, some of which may be team-based, multidisciplinary/interdisciplinary. The HOD of each department in the college incorporate the feedback of the stakeholders, that is, students, parents, industry experts, and subject experts, for designing and updating the curriculum. Every year, new courses leading to more employability, entrepreneurship, and skill development are continuously strengthened by updating the syllabus in accordance with the needs of the industry and higher education requisites. Some of the courses, like value education, and topics such as gender sensitization, not only aid in the development of subject skills, but also lay emphasis on students' moral development and personality enhancement. Choice-based credit system. The college also considers good practices in initiating a range of program options that are relevant to local needs and in tune with emerging national and global trends. The college adopted the choice-based credit system in 2016 to honor students and career skills for securing prospective employment. Academic Bank of Credits, ABC. Loyola Academy is eager to sign up with the ABC in order to give its students access to multiple entries and exits during the selected program and to facilitate credit transfer. Slow learners would greatly benefit from these programs, which also give students the freedom to learn at their own pace and convenience. The stipulation would be carried out in accordance with the state government's and Osmania University's rules, regulation, and instructions. MOUs. The college has MOUs in place with several other colleges and universities for collaborative projects, and it anticipates internationalizing/standardizing education and common degrees between Indian and foreign institutions. Through the learning management system, faculty members actively participate in developing their own curricula and pedagogical approaches within the framework that has been approved. And NPTEL and SPIAM. Students are encouraged to sign up for and successfully complete courses in online learning environments like SPIAM and NPTEL to improve their educational experience. Extra co-curricular activities. The Planet Program, NSS, NPTEL, Skill Enhancement Certificate courses, and other programs allow them to gain extra credits to be added at the moment. Skill development. Skill development courses implemented by Loyola Academy are based on a learner-centric approach to the student's holistic development. The courses offered are decided on the basis of the skill requirements and interests of the students, and the curricula is designed to take account of the valuable suggestions from the skill trainers. From these skill courses, students can enrich their employability. Appropriate integration of Indian knowledge system. Integrating Indian Knowledge System, IKS, into the current system allows for a wider perspective into all aspects of culture/heritage, values, and knowledge of India through their holistic development. IKS through online learning methods. The Institute utilizes online courses and ready-to-access audio/visuals to better permeate and increase the efficacy of the IKS wherever possible. Utilizing the online method provides the students flexibility to learn the course at their own pace, allowing for a deeper/passionate understanding and learning. Distance education/online education. Loyola Academy has also organized several workshops and seminars online. To ensure efficiency and effectiveness, the institution also purchased Zoom and WebEx meeting packages to conduct these workshops/seminars. Students' data. Number of programs offered during the year 40. Total number of students during the year 5723. Curricular aspects. Curriculum design and development. The head of each department in the college incorporates the feedback of the students, parents, industry experts, and subject experts for updating the curriculum. The suggestions recommended by the aforementioned people are forwarded to the Dean of Academics for further deliberation in the Academic Council meeting. Curriculum enrichment. The institution does offer flexible and innovative curricula through a variety of programs, one of which is the Planet Program, projects of Loyola Academy for Neighborhood, Empowerment and Transformation, in which the students across all departments as a part of their curriculum are taken to villages, orphanages, as a part of community engagement. Catering to student diversity. Slow learners. The faculty identifies slow learners and provides them with tailored assistance through visual/activity-based teaching, rewards-based systems, and other mentoring methods. As part of the mentor and mentee program, the faculty mentor interacts with the student in and out of the classroom and analyze their strengths, weakness, talents, opportunities, and challenges. In addition to establishing remedial classes, this data is used by the HODs and faculty to set SMART goals for the student and teach the slow learners. This provides them with the support required to attain their goals. Advanced learners. The advanced learners are identified early and are placed in leadership, semi-administrative and peer mentoring positions to further develop their skills and educational prowess. In addition, they are assigned challenging questions/papers/research to develop their curiosity and intellect. Student-centric methods. Experiential learning. A better understanding of the courses, which include television production, digital photography, media presentation skills, photojournalism, digital audio production, short films, where students learn through experience. 2. Learning experience is inculcated in the curriculum through experiments in labs. This includes programs like biotechnology, chemistry, agriculture, and food technology. Participative learning. 1. Visual learning is enhanced by PowerPoint presentation, and problem-solving ability in students is improved through various assignments and seminars. 2. The classroom discussions inculcated encourages students to engage and interact with others. 3. Industrial visits conducted are a vital program for students to gain insightful experience in the corporate world. 4. Co-curricular activities like sports, NSS, NCC, clubs, student council, and etc. Problem-solving methodologies. Case study analysis and discussions enables critical thinking skills in students. Assignment and quizzes after each unit helps them understand and revert to topics easily. IT integration and reforms in the examinations. IT integration and reforms in the examination procedures and processes, including continuous internal assessment, CIA, have brought in considerable improvement in the examination management system, EMS, of the institution. 1. Internal test components are mid-semester exam 1, mid-semester exam 2, group discussion, assignment, seminar/viva, attendance. Student performance and learning outcomes. Loyola Academy has implemented an outcome-based education (OBE) system that prioritizes outcome-based teaching and learning to foster effective student participation, enhance global competitiveness, develop skill sets, and expand opportunities for students. Attainment of program outcomes and course outcomes. The process of attainment of COs, POs, and PSOs starts from writing COs and 5 course outcomes suggested by Bloom. The CO attainment is measured based on the results of internal and external examinations conducted by the university. Attainment Level 3, 85% of students scored more than 40% out of 100% marks. Attainment Level 2, 75 to 85% of students scored more than 40% marks. Attainment Level 1, 65 to 75% of students scored more than 40% marks. Research, innovations, and extension. Promotion of research and facilities. Loyola Academy, LA, provides all necessary infrastructural facilities and conducive environment to promote research activity in the campus with high-speed internet facility. The research activities are monitored by Research Committee, which is reconstituted every year. Every research center is equipped with necessary software, computers, and LCD facility for carrying out research activities. Innovation Ecosystem. Loyola Academy has created an ecosystem by establishing Institutions Innovation Council for the academic year 2023 to 24 to organize more activities on entrepreneurship, innovations, and skill development for the development of both faculty and students. It also has Innovation and Incubation Cell and Entrepreneurship Development Cell to take care of startups and innovative ideas. Extension activities. Social sensitization. All the students participate in the extension services imbibing the inherent values of service learning. Community engagement nurtures social sensitization, concern for the disadvantaged sections of society, environmental consciousness, and humanitarianism. 2. Impact. The social engagements have created an impact on community related to literacy, community health, well-being, agro-development, women empowerment, environmental sustainability, and social welfare, awareness on government schemes, rural infrastructure development and building inclusive India. The college has commendable infrastructure for sports with vast expanded grounds for basketball, volleyball, handball, kabaddi, and badminton courts as well. An open-air stadium for athletics, cricket, and football field with a gallery which has a seating capacity of 200 is on the campus near the boys' hostel. The cricket field is laid out on black soil and the pitch is made up of red clay. The 400 meters athletic red clay track has an 8-lane facility. Alumni engagement. Loyola Academy Alumni Association registered under the Telangana Societies Registration Act, 2001 is pivotal in building a barrier between the students and alumni. The association is comprised of alumni, senior staff, and few members of management. It is a member of Jesuit Alumni Association, JAA, which constitutes all alumni associations of Jesuit academic institutions in India. Governance, leadership, and management. Institutional vision and leadership. The vision of Jesuit education is to impart higher education with integral formation, which involves academic excellence, spiritual growth, social commitment, and value-based leadership. Internal Quality Assurance System. The Internal Quality Assurance Cell, IQAC, is a strategic initiative by Loyola to ensure consistency and quality in all aspects of the functioning of the Academy since 2014. 2 best practices institutionalized by the IQAC initiatives to assure the quality of the Institute, also keeping in view the vision and mission of the Institute. Academic audit. Quality enhancement strategy for academic excellence. Institutional values and best practices. Institutional values and best practices. Gender equity is used to identify people, not to discriminate them. According to the admissions policy, all applicants will be given an equal chance. Student council, class representatives, NCC, and NSS comprises of equal number of male and female students in various portfolios. PTM. communication, parental involvement, feedback, problem solving, goal setting. Institution celebrates/organizes national and international commemorative days, events, and festivals. National and international festivals inculcate a sense of patriotism, national integrity, and inclusivity among the students and staff. Loyola Academy commemorates these occasions by celebrating national festivals like Republic Day and Independence Day to commemorate the milestones of India's history. Inclusive environment, i.e., tolerance and harmony towards cultural, regional, linguistic, communal, socioeconomic, and other diversities. A secular forum where all festivals are recognized regardless of culture, location, or socioeconomic standing is the Interfaith Committee. Institutional distinctiveness. Maintaining environment-friendly attitudes and practices to ensure sustainability in all sections of campus life. Loyola Academy is spread over 132.38 acres. The campus is an abode of wildlife species. College conducts environmental audit. There are about 2,800 fully grown trees, 10 years or more, 1,200 half-grown trees, below 10 years, 722 bushes, 1,000 young trees and plants, below 5 years. Student Satisfaction Survey. Student satisfaction surveys are typically conducted periodically, such as at the end of each semester or academic year. The results of these surveys are used by institutions to identify areas of improvement and implement changes that enhance the student experience. Here is the Student Satisfaction Survey process. Thank you. Welcome to Loyola Degree and PG College.
We will now have a short break. I request you all to kindly assemble at 4:45 p.m. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I request you all to kindly settle down as we are going to start with our online session. Yes, I will be introducing.
Yeah, otherwise I can also say a few words. Now you say it.
And then you will say.
Yeah, I will say a few.
Okay. Just check with Josephine, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Josephine, ma'am. Professor Josephine. Is it audible? Hello, ma'am. Shall we start? Yes. Can you just turn your unmute and just speak so that we can know that you are audible here. So they are going to all see from the screen. They are not going to join into the session because all the participants are all seated in a hall.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Are we audible, ma'am?
Shall we start?
Yes.
Am I audible? And shall I present my...
Yes, ma'am. Just give me a minute. Can you hear me? Am I audible to you?
Larissa, ma'am?
Yes. Am I audible to you, ma'am? Am I audible to you?
Ma'am, can I go ahead or you want to check with the screen sharing?
Ma'am, just give me a minute.
Is the screen visible to you?
बाला मैम ने होस्ट चाहिए
Letitia, ma'am, is my screen visible? Larissa?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We will now begin with the online session by Dr. A. Josephine Prabha, Associate Dean of Sciences and Assistant Professor of Physics, Bishop Heber College, Trichy, Tamil Nadu. She is going to give a small presentation on AsiaNet and on the various MOUs that they have.
Good evening to all of you. See, we have in Ayache, the AsiaNet and Ayache, we have 2021, we had an MOU with AsiaNet members, and then she is Josephine is from Bishop Heber College. She is the professor of physics. She is the coordinator for all the AsiaNet programs. So I think I've asked her to say a few words about how the program is going on, AsiaNet program. Josephine, you go ahead.
Reverend Father Xavier Vedam, the General Secretary of IACHE, Reverend Father Joji Reddy, the Principal of Loyola Academy, the resource persons from Asian Network, Professor Glenn Shiv, Benson, Professor Melissa, Dr. Rama, the coordinator of FETS 2023, and Clarissa, the participants, a very warm evening to all of you. Indeed, it's my pleasure to share the genesis of MOU between IACHE and Asian Network and the progress of the activities till date. To be very frank, it is God's gift that IACHE has ventured into an MOU with Asian Network. It so happened that we have a team of members who visited IACHE office, and it is their friendly deliberations which made them possible to enter into this MOU. Just one small, this meeting is being live streamed. Are you able to see that also? Is my screen visible? Yes, ma'am. There is no pop-up window seen, no? Is the entire window clear? Yes, ma'am. So it is a friendly ventures when a team of Asian Network members visited the IACHE office. The MOU, signing of the MOU got germinated. So in fact, it was initiated in June 2020, and after several deliberations with online meetings, the final draft of the MOU was finished in December 2020, and the MOU got signed in February 2021. These are the clippings that we had several virtual global meet to decide on the draft of MOU, and this is the signatories of MOU. And the scope of IACHE Asian Network MOU includes exchange program for students, faculty, administrative staff, and we have periodical faculty development programs, educational and cultural tours, understanding academic programs, undertaking and collaborative activities, creation and sharing of e-resources, and conduct of certificate courses online, organizing conferences or seminars, which we are witnessing one such right now, collaborative research projects, publication of journals, and helping for the ranking processes. As we know, having signed the MOU, swirled by the winds of Corona, the actual inauguration, the formal inauguration took place in the Triennial Conference in December 2021. These are the clippings taken during the inaugural session. And to mark as the first event of this collaboration, a book was released under the name American Popular Culture, wherein the authors are solely from Asian Network. These are the Asian Network Guiding Group members who are constantly in touch with us, guiding us the activities. From the part of IACHE, feeling that the resource pool over here is not being strengthened among the Christian educational institutions, IACHE felt the need to create a resource pool wherein we have 6-member coordination committee and 14 members as core committee requesting for one nodal person from each institute. And this nodal person will interact with the principal and identify the experts from their colleges. And this experts team will serve as the resource pool for IACHE, which will be posted at the website so that the Asian Network members could see that and strengthen their collaborations. And the subject experts have been divided into 3 categories: subject expert, research expert, and skill expert. Skill in the sense of communication skill, ICT tools. So a college will have 3 different categories of creating the resource pool for subject expert, research expert, and skill expert. These are the forms which have been circulated to the principals. So far we have received from 43 colleges the nodal members, and the nodal members in turn will give the list of experts in consultation with the principals, and the individuals will give their profiles for their Asian Network membership. So after which we had several global small group meets in June 2021 and May 2022, wherein it was decided the design of website of Asian Network was shared, and the role of IACHE and Asian Network in facilitating the collaborations from both sides was discussed, and few online programs, periodical programs are to be planned, and cultural exchange programs are to be strengthened. And the second program what was ventured, which was of great success, is the student collaboration in literature across the globe between America and India. There were 3 institutions involved. One is from Holy Cross College, the other one is from Vishabika College, and from Salesian College, Siliguri. The Asian Network coordinator was Preeti Joshi from University of Puget Sound. 5 students from each college were selected, and then these 15 students were made to interact with 15 students of Preeti Joshi online, and they discussed several things about American and Indian literature. The only challenge was to find out a convenient time for them to have online meets. Nevertheless, they had very enriching experience. With an urge to popularize this Asian Network MOU, there was a meta relationship building webinar which was planned on 29 September 2022, wherein we had 13 Asian Network members and 300 faculty members across India participated. 3 members from Asian Network and 3 members from our side of IACHE talked up the possible collaborative activities. And later on, we moved into 9 different breakout rooms under the heads of religious studies, media and cultural studies, natural sciences, social sciences, language and literature, history, and administrators remained in the main room discussing about the institutional collaborations. So this was really fruitful, which gave us an impetus for this program. The 4th activity was when Dr. Lisa Trivedi, the professor of history, Hamilton College, Clinton, visited India for her research purpose, and she made it a point to meet IACHE office. And there was an interactive meeting with the General Secretary and few members from Mary and Jesus College, Delhi. The interaction was highly fruitful, as a result of which we had Asian Network collaborations and research proposals in humanities and social sciences, and an online meet on 25th February, wherein 111 participants were there in the meet. We were also given a special session in the annual conference of Asian Network, which held on 16 April 2023. The 4 members for the George Terracle, the former president of IACHE, myself, Dr. M. Gautam from Loyola College, and Dr. M. Mary Jayanti from Holy Cross College were there in the annual conference. Mary Jayanti presented on the impact of South Asian literature and culture in Asian studies. And now we are witnessing the International FDP, the first one of its kind, due to the outcome of this IACHE Asian Network collaborations. We are indeed thankful to Loyola Academy, Hyderabad, for taking up this venture and making this a highly successful program. As we think about the future activities, we look forward for several webinars, workshops, and conferences, student and staff exchange programs, collaborations in terms of teaching and research. This could be highly possible If and only if we have one-on-one interaction, and there are two separate websites, one for IACHE and Asian Network. IACHE website will post all the expert team from our side, and we request the members from every college to visit Asian Network site to find out an intersection of your domain of expertise and theirs. If that is identified, Dan Chopness from Asian Network and Ayache from India can facilitate one-to-one interaction, and this could pop up as a fruitful collaborative activity. So the only request from Ayache side is that every faculty should visit Asian Network website, finding out their own domain of expertise. So finally, I would like to thank for the George Director, for the former president, for the Reverend Father Xavier Vedam, the General Secretary, Dan Shopkins, the Executive Director of Asian Network, Dr. V. Paul Diabrin, the former principal, and Dr. J. Princey Merlin, principal in charge of Bishop Weber College, for being very supportive with all the activities of IACHE, Board of Directors and guiding group of Asian Network, core committee members of IACHE and Asian Network, the participants, the coordinator of FETS 2023, Dr. Rama, and Larissa. Thank you very much. I believe Dan and Father George should be there, and I'll be happy if there are any queries to answer. And over to Larissa for the rest of the proceedings.
Thank you, Professor.
Good evening, Dan.
We have with us Professor Dan Shopness, an Executive Director of Asia Network and Professor Emeritus of Biology and Asian Studies at Carthage College in Wisconsin.
Good, thank you very much. I've just been permitted to unmute. This is great. I really appreciate this. Thank you, Dr. Josephine, for that wonderful introduction to our collaboration. And I just thank all the organizers who've been involved in this collaboration and in the current FETS program. Dr. Shive, Father Vedam, Father George, and so many others who have played a role, all the collaborators over all these years. We're really seeing these wonderful, fruitful exchanges take place, and I hope that we'll have a chance to discuss now some additional opportunities to build upon what we've already done together. I have some slides, and so if the host could enable sharing, I'd be able to present some slides and discuss with everyone a little bit about Asia Network's background, so you can come to know our organization a little bit, and especially some avenues for possible work together in the future. So if the host could enable screen sharing, I think that would permit me to present some slides.
Dan, they are just giving it. Just 1 second.
Yes, okay, good. It has been enabled. Wonderful. Okay. So I believe that you should see some slides now. Colleges and universities were founded more than 30 years ago. Originally, private liberal arts colleges. Some were church affiliated, some not. And really with the idea of bringing people together from different institutions to collaborate in shared interest in faculty development, in pursuing teaching, in finding opportunities to share resources, even through grants. And so many of our institutions have historically been rather small or medium sized, rather than the large universities that tend to have more resources. And all of this is to promote education about Asia for our students and to enable faculty opportunities in support of that.
Dan, very sorry to intervene. Is there a way that you can make full screen?
Yes, let me see what I can do with that. Okay, great. Glad to see that. So currently we have over 140 colleges and universities that are members of Asia Network. We have an institutional model of membership and faculty-driven governance and programming. Our institutions comprise private and public institutions, all with primarily undergraduate or bachelor level student population. Our mission includes these 5 areas. We engage in collaborative learning programs for faculty and for students. We try to facilitate student and faculty travel to Asia. We promote research about Asia among our faculty at our institutions. We mount an annual conference. We have publications and a website. And we enable consultations and sharing of expertise on Asian studies curriculum among our membership. Some of the ways that we carry out this mission we can see in our programming, both in the past and our present programming. For example, we have through external grants been able to support faculty mentored student projects in Asia, where faculty and several students can travel to sites in Asia for several weeks, for example, during the summer, to carry out local projects. We have sponsored through grants postdoctoral teaching fellowships. We have sought to support student scholarship through a student essay award. We have an open access peer-reviewed journal called Asia Network Exchange, focusing on research and pedagogy related to the undergraduate classroom. And we also have a book series, also open access, available anywhere in the world for download. These are peer-reviewed monographs focusing on religion in national and international affairs. This was led by Dr. Our members are developing what we call emerging projects. In these initiatives, we're looking to create new connections among our membership, between our institutions, and with colleagues around the world. For example, we're really seeking some collaboration and partnership in these areas. And so this is an invitation, and we'll have several in the next few minutes. There are many ways that we're seeking closer connections and involvement with our partners in Ayache. We have a group of faculty pursuing topics related to disability in Asian studies. This has to do with both scholarship around disability and teaching students with disabilities in learning about Asia. We are interested in climate justice and action. We have a group of faculty working on projects related to Blackness in Asian studies. We have a group working on Asian American studies in the classroom and out in the world. What are the connections between the North American experience and the experience of Asians